world is yourself pushed out. Neville Goddard. There is a moment each night when the outer world releases its grip, when the body softens and thoughts begin to float. That thin, golden veil between wakefulness and sleep. This is where your future is molded. And yet most people slip into it unconsciously. They replay regrets. They rehearse anxieties. They wonder why tomorrow looks so much like yesterday. But what if that quiet moment, that seemingly ordinary act of falling asleep, was in fact the most powerful creative portal available to you? Not a ritual you add to your day, but a natural rhythm you're already inside. A door that opens every night, waiting for your intention. Neville called this state the bridge of consciousness, where your mind becomes most receptive and the gate to your subconscious swings wide open. Disregard appearances and declare yourself to be the man you want to be. But what does that actually look like? What does it feel like to become the version of you that already has the thing you're seeking before you sleep? Let's ground this in something real. Imagine your desire is to be in a loving mutual relationship. Now, most people would visualize the date night, the ring, the photos, but you're going deeper. Tonight, as you lie in bed, your body heavy and breath slow, you don't reach for external scenes. You reach for internal reality. Feel the weight of a loving presence beside you, maybe not even their face, but their nearness. Feel the way your chest loosens, your jaw unclenches because you're safe. There's no striving, no searching, only being. This is what Neville meant by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You don't chase the manifestation, you inhabit its essence. Now pause and ask yourself this. What is the final thought I allow myself before drifting into sleep? What assumption am I feeding to my subconscious as the last flavor of my day? Because the subconscious is never idle. It receives that final tone, not just your words but your feeling, and begins to move in silence to mirror it back into form. If you drift off feeling abandoned, you will awaken to a world echoing that belief. If you surrender into a state of being cherished, known, and complete, then your world reshapes itself accordingly. This is why Neville emphasized the drowsy state. When you're not quite awake, not quite asleep, the critical filter of the conscious mind softens. You're impressionable, open, and the seed you plant here becomes the harvest of your waking life. Tonight, I want you to try something. Let your body soften. Don't resist tiredness. In fact, welcome it. Then gently bring to mind a single inner scene, not complex, not long, just one short moment that implies your desire has been fulfilled. It could be a brief inner dialogue where someone congratulates you, a moment where you smile quietly to yourself, knowing it's done. The internal sensation of relief, not as a hope, but as a reality. Or perhaps use no imagery at all. Instead, wrap yourself in the mood, the tone of fulfillment. Feel it as a warmth, a glow, a shift in your breath, and then let sleep take you. This isn't about force. It's about identity immersion. You are no longer the one desiring. You are the one who already is. Dare to believe in the reality of your assumption and watch the world play its part relative to its fulfillment. Neville Goddard. So tonight, as your eyes grow heavy, give your subconscious a new script. Not one of lack or longing, but one of arrival. Whisper it if you wish. I am it. I am ready. I am already living it. Fall asleep in that state, because the dream begins there, not in the morning, and the world will soon rise to meet the version of you who had the courage to believe. Before seeing anything at all, you must erase doubt with revision before sleep. The past and what appears to be the present are only projections of your imagination. Neville Goddard. What if last night never really happened? What if this morning, that awkward conversation, that setback, that moment where you doubted yourself again, was not written in stone, but in sand? And what if you could go back, not with guilt or regret, but with authority, and rewrite it? Neville called this process revision, and it is perhaps the most radical, underrated tool in all his teachings. He once said, "Change your conception of yourself and you will automatically change the world in which you live." Do not try to change people. They are only messengers telling you who you are. You see, every event in your day, especially the ones that disturb you, are not facts to be accepted but reflections of a deeper assumption you've been carrying. And revision is not simply about feeling better. It's about interrupting the momentum of unwanted states. It's about refusing to carry today's error into tomorrow's creation. Imagine your day as a script. You've just played it once, imperfectly. And now, before bed, you return to the stage. Not to relive it, but to reshape it. Let's say someone ignored your message today and a familiar thought surfaced. I'm not valued, I'm invisible. That thought may feel small, it may pass, but it plants a seed, and unless you uproot it, it will blossom into tomorrow's experience. So tonight as you lie in bed, close your eyes and replay the scene, not as it was, but as it should have been. See them responding, kindly. Hear the tone of mutual respect in their voice. Feel the sensation of being acknowledged. But here's the key. You're not pretending the event didn't happen. You're overwriting the emotional signature it left behind, because the subconscious doesn't remember events the way the conscious mind does. It remembers impressions. And if you impress upon it a new ending, a new vibration, then the next experience you encounter will reflect that new state. Let me give you a lesser-known tip Neville hinted at in his lectures. You don't need to revise every detail. You only need to revise yourself within the scene. How did you react? Did you shrink, lash out, accept less? Then revise not just the outer event, but your inner posture. Imagine yourself responding with dignity. Imagine standing in full self-worth, calm and unmoved. Imagine the version of you that no longer takes rejection personally. That is where the true transformation lies. Now pause. Think back on your day. Where did you abandon yourself? Where did you agree to a version of you that was less than whole? Take one scene, just one, and gently, lovingly, rewrite it now. Let the new version play out in your mind, not with force, but with familiarity. Feel it, smile at it, and as sleep approaches, let that revised scene become your final inner movie. Why is this powerful? Because the version of you that falls asleep after revising a moment of failure into a moment of alignment, that version will wake up with a new self-concept, and reality, obedient as ever, will organize itself to match. Let's say it again, not as theory, but as truth. There is no fiction. Neville Goddard, your revised scenes, when felt deeply, become the roots of real, external changes. You are not trapped in the events of your day. You are not bound by what has happened. You are always the author, even at midnight, especially at midnight. So don't carry old stories into your sacred sleep. Rewrite them, reclaim them, and rest in the knowing that the past only persists when you believe it must. Tonight, revision becomes your closing ritual, not to fix the world, but to fix the lens through which you see yourself. Because tomorrow always begins with who you assume yourself to be, in the silence of night just before you dream. The drama of life is a psychological one in which all the conditions, circumstances, and events of your life are brought to pass by your assumptions. Neville Goddard. Each day is a stage, and you, knowingly or not, are its writer, its lead actor, and its quiet observer. But the real story, the one that becomes tomorrow, is not the one you live during the day. It's the one you fall asleep with. It's the final scene, the closing moment that seals itself into your subconscious like wax beneath a ring. And unless you intervene, that last emotional imprint becomes the seed of your next reality. Most people allow the day to end at its worst moment. A conflict, a disappointment, a feeling of inadequacy or fear. They carry that unresolved energy into sleep, assuming their role in the drama of being unloved, unchosen, uncertain. And then they wake to a world that looks hauntingly familiar, because the scene replayed itself while they slept. It became the inner script, quietly directing the actors and events of the next day. But Neville Goddard offered a quiet rebellion to this pattern, the last scene replay. The idea is simple, but its power is seismic. You revise the final moment of your day, not with fantasy or denial, but with intention. You don't fall asleep as someone wishing things had been different. You fall asleep as someone who knows they already are. Suppose your day ended in rejection, the message was left unread, the opportunity slipped through your fingers, or you walked away feeling invisible. If you carry that unresolved script into sleep, it impresses itself on your deeper mind as truth. But if, in that tender moment before the veil of sleep fully closes, you revisit the event and change it, not just mentally, but emotionally, you shift the entire trajectory of your subconscious programming. Replay the event with the outcome you desire. Hear the message arrive with warmth. Feel your body react not with fear but with peace. Let your imagination soften the edges of disappointment and shape the story as you would have it be. Not because the world outside must change first, but because you must. Your inner world is not a reflection of what has happened. It is the cause. Neville wrote, "Your assumption, to be effective, cannot be a single isolated act. It must be a maintained attitude of the wish fulfilled." The last scene replay is how that attitude is sustained, not through effort, but through rhythm. Like a lullaby you sing to your subconscious, it becomes a new melody of being. What matters is not how complex your revision is. What matters is the feeling it leaves behind. It may be a brief internal image, yourself smiling in confidence, hearing the words you long to hear, walking away with your head held high. Or it may be a quiet emotional tone, satisfaction, peace, certainty. That tone is what enters the subconscious. That is what shapes your tomorrows. This is not imagination as escape. It is imagination as authorship. Because the subconscious does not distinguish between a lived experience and a vividly accepted one. And the final scene you choose before sleep is the one that takes root. The power lies not in how long you visualize, but in how convincingly you identify. You don't imagine it happened to you. You imagine that you already are the person to whom such things naturally happen. This is the difference between fantasy and assumption. Neville reminded us that all transformation begins with an intense, burning desire to be transformed. But that transformation doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from accepting the new story with a soft but resolute heart. Especially when the lights are dim, the world is silent, and your inner stage is yours alone. Let the last moments of your day be claimed by the version of you who already knows it's done. Not because anything outside has changed, but because the author, the dreamer, the director, the source, finally remembered they were never just the actor in the scene. They were always the one writing it. Before we continue, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what if everything you call reality is just a suggestion you've been accepting as fact? If that question stirs something in you, there's something waiting for you in the pinned comment. Let's keep going. Set a sleep anchor with a phrase or touch. Your assumption, though false if persisted in, will harden into fact. Neville Goddard. There is a way to train the mind, not by force, but through rhythm. A way to gently lead the subconscious each night into the feeling of the wish fulfilled using something so simple, so subtle, that it bypasses resistance entirely. This is the power of anchoring, a technique borrowed from ritual and memory, but reborn here as a tool for inner transformation. Imagine if every night as you approach sleep you repeated a single phrase, just a few words, but always the same ones. Over time, the subconscious would begin to associate those words not just with sound, but with a feeling, a state, an identity. That repetition would become a signal, a kind of inner doorway, leading directly to the version of yourself you've been seeking to embody. Think of it the way the body learns to relax when it hears a lullaby. Not because the music contains magic, but because the meaning has been built over time. The subconscious responds to patterns, and patterns create belief. Neville spoke often about the importance of feeling. He said, "Feeling is the secret." But what most overlook is that feeling can be induced not always through vivid imagination, but through familiar triggers. A whispered affirmation, a gentle touch to the heart, a specific posture or breath. These become anchors, links between the physical and the imaginal. Let's say your phrase is, "It is done." At first it may feel hollow, even uncertain, but if you pair it with a moment of stillness each night, if you speak it as the last word before sleep, with just enough conviction to light a spark, your subconscious begins to understand. This means completion. This means the wish is fulfilled. And if, at the same time, you place a hand on your chest or your stomach, anywhere you feel most connected to yourself, that touch becomes part of the ritual. You are impressing the body with the belief. You are telling the subconscious, not in analysis, but in sensation, "This is who I am now." The beauty of anchoring lies in its simplicity. You are not required to build elaborate scenes or long meditations. You only need to choose a symbol, something repeatable, something intimate, and charge it with meaning. You may find that after a few nights, the moment you repeat your chosen phrase or gesture, your entire emotional state shifts. You drop into peace. You begin to feel the nearness of your desire. You become what you've assumed. Neville often described the subconscious as impersonal. It accepts what you give it, not because it agrees, but because it cannot distinguish between real and imagined when the emotion is genuine. Anchoring allows you to give it something clear to hold on to. A phrase like, "I am safe." A touch to the center of your chest. A breath that carries the mood of arrival. These are not tricks. They are access points. The key is consistency. Use the same phrase, the same gesture, night after night, until it becomes automatic. Until your body begins to anticipate the shift. Until your mind begins to relax the moment the anchor is activated. Over time, This becomes a gateway, a portal through which you pass each night from old assumptions into new identity. This is not about magic words. It is about creating meaning through repetition, and through that repetition, awakening a part of you that has always known the truth of your being. You may wonder, why does such a small act matter? But remember, it is not the size of the act. It is the quality of attention and feeling that determines its power. The subconscious is not moved by complexity. It is moved by clarity, and a simple phrase spoken in a drowsy state, felt deeply, repeated faithfully, can move mountains. So the question is, what phrase will you choose? What gesture feels most like home? Not to force change, but to remind yourself of the change already taking place. You don't need to believe it fully. You only need to feel it long enough to fall asleep inside it, because the version of you that wakes up tomorrow will rise from the state you anchored tonight. And if that state is peace, fulfillment, joy, confidence, or abundance, then those qualities will quietly begin to echo back to you from the world outside. The phrase becomes your signal, the touch becomes your door, and sleep becomes the sacred chamber where assumption begins its silent work. Construct a sleep identity capsule. You rise to a higher level of being not by willpower, but by assuming the state of the higher being and sleeping in it. Neville Goddard. There is a way to enter sleep as a different version of yourself, without trying to visualize entire scenes or orchestrate complex stories. A way to bypass the noise of the day and drop into the essence of who you wish to be. It is not about effort. It is about identity. And it begins with what I call the sleep identity capsule. Think of this capsule as a condensed, emotionally charged version of your desired self. Not a sentence you memorize, but a feeling you wear like a second skin. Before sleep, you enter it not by force, but by familiarity. It's not outside of you, it is you. Stripped of noise, condensed into clarity. The world conditions us to focus on action. What are you doing to get where you want to go? What have you achieved today? But in Neville's teaching, transformation begins not with doing, but with being. And the capsule is how you settle into that beingness when your mind is quietest and your subconscious is most open. Let's say you long to be deeply secure in love. Instead of visualizing a perfect date or wedding ring, you strip the desire down to its emotional core. What you really want is to feel chosen, to feel seen, to feel safe in connection. So your capsule becomes the identity of someone who already is. And then, in the moments before sleep, you step into that identity not through fantasy, but through feeling. You repeat a short phrase, not for its words, but for the state it invokes. A phrase like, I am already loved. Or even simpler, I am home. You don't need to believe it with your logical mind. You only need to feel it long enough to fall asleep inside it. The repetition is not to convince, it is to stabilize, to anchor you in the mood of arrival. Neville wrote, you must feel yourself right into the situation of your answered prayer. That's what the capsule does. It is not about manifesting the thing, it is about absorbing the state that would naturally produce it. The outer effect is inevitable once the inner state becomes consistent. This capsule can take many forms. For some, it's a mantra, short and powerful, repeated softly like a lullaby. For others, it's a single image, a warm light, a smile, a subtle moment that implies fulfillment. Or perhaps it's a posture, a way your body rests when it finally feels safe and complete. The form doesn't matter. What matters is that it's yours. Honest, simple, and emotionally potent. This practice does not require visualization. It requires identification. You are not trying to see the new version of you. You are allowing yourself to become it, not for a moment, but for the entire descent into sleep. And here is what makes this so powerful. When you fall asleep in a state, your subconscious accepts that state as your dominant assumption, and it must reproduce it in your waking life, not as a reward, but as a natural outcome. You fall asleep as the one who already has, and life begins to reflect that truth. The sleep identity capsule is not about tricking the mind. It's about remembering what you've always known, that who you are internally is the only truth that matters. That state of being is not created, it is uncovered. So what if tonight you dropped all resistance? What if, for the next few minutes before sleep, you laid aside every contradiction and allowed yourself to feel the simplicity of, I am already, not needing to prove it, not needing to be worthy of it, just resting inside it, feeling the warmth of it. Because the truth is, what you fall asleep believing you begin to live, and what you consistently embody, the world cannot help but reflect. The capsule becomes your bridge, your quiet agreement with the unseen. And in that silence, before the world stirs again, you declare, not with struggle but with surrender, "This is who I am now." And sleep carries that message deeper than any words could go. Make your bed a manifestation altar. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and sleep in it. But Neville Goddard, your bed is more than furniture. It is a threshold, a sacred space where the conscious mind fades and the subconscious becomes sovereign. And what surrounds you in that space either reinforces your chosen identity or repeats the noise of yesterday. Neville taught that we must sleep in the assumption of the wish fulfilled. But how can we assume a new state if our environment constantly echoes the old? To make your bed a manifestation altar is to treat the space with reverence, a soft light, a symbolic object, a scent that evokes peace or fulfillment. These are not decorative choices. They are signals to the subconscious. This is who I am now. Just as a place of worship evokes stillness, your sleeping space can become a quiet agreement with the life you are choosing. A folded blanket, a candle lit with intention, even a clean and ordered room. Each detail whispers alignment, not effort. If you desire love, let the space reflect warmth. If your wish is abundance, let it feel generous, uncluttered, complete. This isn't about impressing others. It's about impressing the self. You are telling your deeper mind, "This is where I return to the feeling of it being done." Sleep then becomes a sacred act, not escape, but creation. The bed becomes a bridge, and each night you cross it as the one who no longer waits but already receives. Borrow someone else's faith for a night. If you cannot believe in the reality of your desire, borrow the belief of someone who can. Neville Goddard. There are nights when belief feels far away. You try to assume the wish fulfilled, but doubt clings like fog. Imagination falters, and the vision of your future self seems just out of reach. In moments like these, you don't need more effort. You need assistance not from the outside world but from within the world of imagination itself. Neville spoke often of the power of inner conversations, those quiet, often unconscious dialogues we hold in our minds. But what if tonight, that voice wasn't yours? What if you invited someone else into that space, someone whose faith in your becoming is unshakable? This is the practice of borrowing faith. Instead of trying to convince yourself of your worth, your success, your wholeness, you imagine someone else doing it for you. A mentor, a dear friend, a partner, even a future version of yourself. You hear their voice, you feel their certainty. They look at you with knowing and they say, "You did it. I never doubted you." Why does this work? Because belief, even imagined, has emotional gravity. The subconscious does not question the source of the feeling. It accepts the feeling itself. So when you fall asleep hearing imagined praise, warmth, or admiration from someone you trust, your inner world begins to conform to that assumption. And soon, it is no longer their belief you are borrowing. It becomes your own. Be still and know that I am God. I am is the self-definition of the absolute. Neville Goddard. Every night, just before you surrender to sleep, there is one phrase more powerful than any technique, affirmation, or visualization. I am, not as words, but as identity, as the gateway to every possibility. Neville taught that I am is the true center of being, the hidden name of God within you. Whatever follows it, you become. It is not description. It is declaration. It is cause. And to misuse it is to unconsciously cast the same spell night after night. I am tired. I am worried. I am still waiting. But when you turn this inward force toward your chosen state, something shifts. I am love. I am known. I am free. These phrases, if felt just before sleep, do not act as hopeful wishes. They become assignments for the subconscious to fulfill. In the moments before sleep, the mind is soft, open, suggestible. The veil is thin, and in that space, the words I am become more than language. They become embodiment. You are not merely saying it, you are entering it. You don't need to add anything more. No timeline, no how, just the stillness of being. A quiet inner statement that replaces all stories of not enough with the truth. I already am. And when you sleep in that knowing, the world rises to meet the name you have dared to claim. Speak to your subconscious as a child. The subconscious is not selective. It accepts what is impressed upon it by the conscious mind. Neville Goddard. The subconscious is not a critic. It does not analyze, question, or debate. It listens like a child, receptive, innocent, deeply influenced by the tone of your inner voice. And that is why how you speak to yourself before sleep matters more than most people realize. Too often, we approach the subconscious with force, demands, desperation, and rigid affirmations. We try to will it into belief, but force closes the door. Feeling opens it, and the most powerful feeling of all is gentle assurance, the kind we use when comforting a child. Neville understood that the subconscious is impressionable, not logical. It accepts repeated emotional truths, not intellectual arguments. So instead of yelling your affirmations into the void, soften them, lower your voice, speak with warmth. Imagine that part of you, the deeper, unseen you, is 5 years old, curious, trusting, and always listening. How would you reassure them? You wouldn't shout, "I am abundant." You'd hold them close and say, "It's okay now. You're safe. Everything you need is already here." That's what it means to speak to your subconscious with love, to treat it not as something to conquer, but as something to guide. You replace pressure with presence, and as you fall asleep in that tone, tender, confident, unwavering, you create a new emotional foundation, a safe place for the assumption to take root. Because belief, like a child, doesn't grow through fear. It grows through quiet, consistent love. Fall asleep inside someone else's celebration. Inner talking from the premises of the wish fulfilled is the way to union with your desire. Neville Goddard. Sometimes the most powerful way to assume your desire is fulfilled is to remove yourself from the center of the scene. Instead, you listen. You overhear others celebrating you, calmly, joyfully, as if it's already done. Neville taught that overheard conversations create deep impressions because they bypass resistance. You're not trying to believe. You're simply receiving belief reflected back. As you fall asleep, imagine a loved one saying, "They finally did it," or two friends sharing, "It all worked out for them," just like they said. Let their imagined voices fill the space around you with certainty. This technique works not because of the words themselves, but because of the tone, the emotional reality they carry. And in that subtle celebration, your subconscious hears the only message that matters. This is now who I am. Sleep with the feeling of the day after. Think from the end, not of the end. Neville Goddard. Instead of imagining the moment your desire arrives, imagine the day after, when it's already normal. No excitement, no surprise, just calm, lived certainty. Neville taught that the feeling of the wish fulfilled is quiet, not dramatic. It's peace, not performance. So as you drift into sleep, feel yourself in that ordinary moment, already having, already being, waking up fulfilled, breathing easier, living effortlessly. This settled state carries no longing. It signals to the subconscious, it is done. And from that feeling, reality begins to mirror what you've accepted as natural. Create a dream loop that repeats your desire. All that you behold, though it appears without, it is within in your imagination. Neville Goddard. Your dreams are not random. They reflect the assumptions you carry into sleep, and when used intentionally, they become a tool for deepening belief. Before sleep, impress a single repeating desire, short, vivid, and emotionally charged. A scene, a phrase, a feeling. Let it loop gently in the background of your awareness, like a soft echo. This loop doesn't need detail. It needs mood, certainty, presence. As you fall into sleep, it continues, carving itself into the subconscious. Soon, the dream world reflects it. And as Neville taught, once an assumption is felt as real, it must externalize. Let your nights rehearse the life already yours. Every night you're shaping the unseen with what you assume to be true. Choose deliberately. Rest as the version of you who already is. And if you're drawn to go deeper into Neville's world, check the pinned comment. It might quietly shift how you see everything.